Hi there, my name is Camilla Regan, and today I will be giving a presentation on the significant figure Catullus. And this is a head bust of him. Not quite sure of the location, but you can tell it's quite old because of the weathering. I thought that was a very neat one. Okay, so Catullus was a Roman poet born in Verona in 84 BCE and came to be known as one of the best and most famed lyric poets that created many of his poems towards the end of the Roman Republic. Although he is still widely renowned even 2,000 years later, not all of his works have survived the test of time. But the existing 116 works of his that we do still have are used as tools in teaching due to their personal and sexual themes, as many of his works surrounded ideas of both love and hatred. There is no solid historical record of his life, as no biographies of Catullus have survived into the modern age. However, contemporaries and later writers have been able to make inferences on his life based on his works of poetry. Despite dying quite young, around the age of 30, according to the poet Ovid, he wrote approximately 116 poems during his lifetime, which were ranging in length from 5 lines to 34 lines. Catullus is most renowned for his usage of lyric-style poetry that creates a sense of excitement, and his longer works of poetry were highly influential towards writers and poets of the Augustan age. As I stated before, Catullus was held in high regard for his lyric poetry, which is a form of poetry that is song-like and holds a lot of emotions. Catullus's poetry also had a wide range of themes. Some poems were about his friends or dedicated to them. Some poems are very erotic in nature, where he talked about his attraction to certain men and women, like Lesbia. Some poems were meant to be scolding to ex-friends or traitors, and some poems were very solemn as they were a means of consoling his loved ones through grief. Many of his most famous poems surround a woman, Lesbia, which is widely thought to be a pseudonym for a married woman that Catullus knew named Claudia Metelli. Catullus expresses his passionate love for Lesbia in many poems, often mentioning her by name and even going so far as to demand thousands of kisses from her in his poetry. In his later works, he reveals his mixed feelings for her. He can't stop loving her, but he doesn't want her to have a good life. Then later on, he writes about how deeply he is hurt and how much he is suffering after Lesbia dumped him. This is an English translation of a Catullus poem number 75, that I found online. At this point, my mind is so broken down by your doing, my Lesbia, that it destroys itself by its own devotion, so that it can no longer wish you well, even if you should become the best, nor can it stop loving you, no matter what you should do. Catullus is referred to as the love poetry pioneer, according to Britannica, but he has also helped to pioneer a completely different type of poetry. In ancient Rome, poetry usually consisted of epics, which were very long narrative poems, usually surrounding one protagonist, which was our hero. But Catullus and a few other poets introduced neoteric poetry, which was a newer, more Hellenistic style of poetry that explored many different themes. This is why, if you look on online resources like Britannica, they usually describe Catullus as a neoteric poet. Earlier, I briefly discussed his influence on later poets. Catullus's influence is most abundantly clear in the work of later poets who were alive during the Augustan age, which was from 27 BC to 14 AD. This era is called the Golden Age due to the peaceful reign of Roman Emperor Augustus. When the Roman Republic was transformed into the Roman Empire, the arts were able to thrive, and poets like Virgil, Horace, and Ovid began publishing works of their own. Virgil, whose style demonstrates mimicry of Catullus's works in his poem Aeneid, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, I don't know how it's pronounced, where he literally borrows lines from Catullus's works. That's definitely one way to say that someone influences you, is by literally kind of stealing lines from their own works. But I thought that was really interesting. Through sort of reading his poetry and learning a little bit about what his life may have looked like, one can definitely deduce that Catullus was a man full of emotional depth. He loved the romantic parts of life and he loved writing about them. He loved his friends, he loved Lesbia, and he loved expressing his feelings through writing. He had a lot to say about the people in his life, both good and bad, taking the time to write poems about lovers, friends, and even enemies that he now hated. He was a man who had a lot of emotional intelligence and he had a very artistic way of showing it through writing, and I can really appreciate that.